Hi Shri, how are you doing? So you recently finished 1 year of coaching with me, right? And thank you for
Yes.
agreeing to sharing some thoughts on how that experience was. But to begin with, can you just share a little bit about yourself and what do you do?
So I recently started a company that's a consulting company in the social enterprise. I work in the social change space. I use behavioral science, systems thinking, many processes for complex problem solving. But when I came to you, I was not running a company. I was more an independent consultant with an idea of having my own entity with a few hurdles to reach there. And now, as you can see, more than a year later, I think I'm living the dream, or I feel more fulfilled because this is what I've always wanted to do.
Yeah. And can you share when you started, right, one working with me around 15 months ago? What was that state? What were some of the challenges that you were facing at that point of time?
I came to because I was having anxiety attacks. I had burnt out. This was like post COVID 2021, and I had a good run during the 2020. But then when I came to you, because I work in social change space, you tend to work with the reality of much of life in the world. And I was being an independent consultant with less opportunities to work with team. And with all my analysis about how the world is working and the kind of projects I'm doing, I was at a stage where I felt hopeless about the actions I was taking as a professional, because I'm working in the social change space. I'm working to make societies better. And suddenly I felt like it's not adding up to anything. On reflection after the coaching, actually, I'm now adding the statement that I was looking for change to happen within my lifetime. And so I felt like hopeless, and also the general environment of how COVID came about because of certain human actions towards that has created climate change, that has probably made COVID happen. Also, this absence of empathy among people, this absence of care for self and surrounding, all that I wouldn't say over analyzing, but it was my job to analyze them. I was doing that, and overall, I felt hopeless. I was getting a lot of anxiety attacks to the extent where I couldn't do run my business. And one of the things I wanted in the business was like do workshops where I shared with people what behavioral science taught me about how we can be better human beings. And I had a lot of inhibitions in being able to conduct those workshops globally. And I didn't know necessarily what those inhibitions were, but all put together, I felt I needed help. I had more belief in coaching. I knew there is therapy, but I had known coaching, and I'd not known coaching in all it was, but I found an attraction towards it, and I found it more powerful as opposed to clinical help. And so I was searching for a coach, and I came across you. And let me mention that until 1 month into coaching, I didn't know you were a leadership coach, but I still remember the first session when within 1 or 2 seconds, you just made me feel very safe. I was not feeling judged. There was no judgment, was not even in the purview of things. You made me feel safe, and there was this very open conversation, and it was a very transforming session that you did for me. And I didn't have to think otherwise at all to say yes or no to having a series of coaching sessions with you for the next few months.
Thank you for sharing that so openly. And then after that, we ended up working together for a year. So can you share a
Yeah.
little bit about that, how that journey was, how that experience was of a full 1 year of coaching?
Okay, so I think every session, that safe space that you created, I am going to give credit to myself also, because I committed for myself to seek help, and I committed to being open and not holding back. While I also approached the sessions like that, I found you created a space of trust and opportunity to open up. And I think that was the first thing throughout, like every session that was there. And every session it was a very deep experience. Maybe the problems I brought in started with anxiety, but then it was also a lot about power dynamics and stuff like that. It came out, and I liked how you were able to help me find those deeper groundings from which I was operating that is not healthy for me to progress. And you help that journey with every session. And one doubt I had was what if one session I don't have anything to ask you help for? And in those sessions, you had a more holistic view of where I want to reach and where I am. And so you were able to share a few content. And again, even those sessions that was initiated by, or I wouldn't say initiated, but then where you brought in content, that also was very powerful. And in fact, I remember this one thing around conditioned tendency where I actually took it up on the next 2 or 3 sessions because it made me identify that's something that I have to work on myself a lot more than I even recognized.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think it brings up a point, right, that coaching is a partnership. It's not a hierarchical relationship or just the coach telling you or teaching you something. It's a partnership where your involvement comes first. And thank you for showing up as that, as you rightly said, right, in that space of listening and also receiving and engaging with asking questions. And also that included disagreeing or going back into your life and trying things out and then coming back with examples of what is working, what is not working.
Yes. So I have coached for 10 years. So for me, just the coach, the word makes resonance with me as to I'm doing something and you're coaching me to do that better. And I thought you were a life coach or a business coach, and I was doing business, I was leading my life, and I thought you as a coach will be that person who will make me do better. But then I think your coaching, I realized you're a leadership coach, and ultimately life or business doesn't matter. I've not thought about leadership before our coaching sessions. And I think you gave me the definition of leadership, and I thought much deeper about leadership. And now I have my idea about leadership. And I think your deploy yourself philosophy of leadership and how you bring that to coaching has been the most helpful to me, so much so that I think it has to spread more and have the ripple effect across people. Because I think with every statement you make or every coaching session that you create, that value of deploy yourself comes across, and it is also contagious to me. It had been contagious to me.
Yeah. And for anybody who might be listening to that, can you share a little bit about how do you see leadership? How do you see yourself as a leader? And how would you summarize deploy yourself or what you learned from the coaching?
You talk about deploy yourself in simplistic terms. Coming from a behavioral science background, I used to call that agency. You call it deploy yourself, right? What you call deploy yourself is a more simplified terminology. And coming from a behavioral science background, I used to call that term agency. Everyone has an agency, right? The right and the ability and the capability to assert their true self. And for me, deploy yourself is deploying that potential that you have just by being you, right? From birth that you have. It can be right, it can be your ability, capability, whatever. But I didn't relate it to leadership. I didn't relate agency to leadership then. Like I said, I've never thought about leadership before. But now day before yesterday, I was sharing with someone what leadership is. Even in a team, I'm heading a company and I'm having recruits. And then I used to also earlier have this apprehension as to what kind of a leader I was going to be. And will I be the one who instructs the team members? Will I be the one like who doesn't allow them space or will allow them space, but without knowing also restrict them? But then working with you, the leadership definition that I have now is I'm leading my life. So the life is behind my leadership, right? So we are all leading lives. So I'm leading my life, meaning for leadership is there in everything, leading in your life, leading in everything that you do. The point about leadership is that I am leading it. So I am choosing the path or choosing the decision to go which way I want, and my life takes that lead. So that, in fact, that approach to leadership also helped me remove that apprehension I had about how will I be a leader in a company when I'm across a team. And I realized that everyone is leading their life. They are leading. They made the choice to come into this company to work with me and whatever we are doing here. And then it's about me guiding their leadership in whatever manner. It's not about me instructing them or them following. So for me, that power dynamics or the power or the hierarchy is completely removed in my definition of leadership. Leadership has now become this what it literally means, right? That you're leading something. And deploying yourself is finding that true self of you that will help you lead in a more progressive manner.
Thank you for sharing that and also comparing it with power and how often that get mixed when we talked about leadership.
Yes.
Yeah. You share about like now after a full year of coaching, how are things different for you internally, especially with your emotions like the anxiety you mentioned, but also about external results. What are you doing differently?
Okay, so in terms of anxiety, I used to feel anxious when I came to you. Even my husband, if he asked me a question of why haven't you washed this for something, that's a more this thing, or why have you done this or something, right? Why did you buy this or something, just in a very normal language, I would get very anxious. Oh, I shouldn't have bought this. I shouldn't have done this. I'm not saying he's patriarchal. This example is a bad example. But then in just any normal conversation, he's just asking you curiously as to, hey, you've done something. I just want to know so that I'm not like stepping on your toes kind of thing. But then I used to get anxious that, oh my God, I shouldn't have done like that. And that's how, with every moment I was anxious without realizing I was anxious. And I think during the coaching, you brought in this perspective of mind-body connection, right? Like how body postures impact emotions and emotions that impact body postures in turn, and how that becomes some kind of conditioned tendency in the way we respond to things. That thing that we worked together and I practiced with every session, I don't know when anxiety vanished, but I don't have that kind of anxiety. But now if I do face, I don't know, actually off late, I'm not facing anxiety. One of the spaces where I would easily face anxiety is when I meet people with power or people with a powerful position, or like people who have I used to feel very insecure and small when I find someone who I think is more intelligent and very perceptive and stuff like that. Recently, last weekend also, I had that situation, and I didn't have an iota of anxiety. And I don't remember where it went. It's also because one, we worked on the mind-body connection. And after the coaching session, I started reading a little bit more around it and augmented that learning and practice that I took away from our coaching sessions. And like I said, my definition of leadership has changed. Even if my husband is asking me a question, I know he is leading his life and he is coming from a curiosity or he's coming from an interest or whatever. And I am leading my life and I made a choice to do something, and he's just asking question and I can make a choice to respond whatever way I want. So for me, anxiety has no place in that communication or the other communications anymore. And even when I meet people with power or people at the powerful position or people who I think are more intelligent than me, again, I remind myself of leadership, that they have led their life, they have reached here. I have led my life and I've reached here. So I think in a way earlier, my anxiety stemmed from self-doubt and, oh, I've not done enough. And now, because my definition of leadership has changed and it's this, I don't have a space for self-doubt and therefore no space for anxiety in a way. But even then, if I find myself in a conditioned tendency like being anxious or being stressed, I think immediately I've started to focus on my body. Like mostly I get stressed on my shoulders or stressed to get tightened or something around my face. And then I position myself in a certain way where, it's more centered, and I remind myself of the centering exercises and some declarations. It's a work in progress. But then I also feel like I said, I just forgot anxiety. I also feel a very fast progress.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. And every time I hear this from you, I think it reminds me that this is not trivial, right? This is so meaningful and it creates so much in the outside world which we deal with. So thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
once again. Yeah.
No, I think thank you to you too. I think your deploy yourself philosophy is very helpful to almost everyone who's with insecurities, right? Because we don't realize where those insecurities stem from. To some extent, a lot of self-awareness helps, and I'm a very self-aware person. But I think what you brought out during the sessions really helped me. Like, I don't have hopelessness anymore. In the definition of leadership, I don't have hopelessness anymore. I am choosing to lead. Yesterday, I was telling myself that I'm choosing to lead. That's a big transformation from where I was. I was very hopeless when I started.
Thank you. And that's a wonderful statement, choosing to lead. Leadership is a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So can you share how is life different? How this has resulted in things changing on the external world with your work, with your business? How are things different now?
So I have a lot of ideas. And some ideas, I don't know how I will reach those visions, right? One of the reasons for my anxiety was, oh my God, will I reach there kind of questions? Or, oh my God, I'm overwhelming myself by, oh, I should do this, I should do this. Oh, I've not yet done this with regards to the future that I wanted, the vision that I had. I think that has changed. I still have those visions, I still have those ideas, but I am not anxious about how will I achieve them. I think the work that we did together, make me get back to the future and then go backward to find the step in the present that I have to do now. And I'm not focusing on the future, but rather focusing on doing that action now. One of the reasons, because I had multiple things I wanted to do, somehow I missed my discipline of prioritizing. And I also, and these are all new journeys in terms of independent consultancy or entrepreneurship, are all new journeys for me. And sometimes you won't feel the impact immediately. You will feel the impact much later. While I had conviction that I will reach there, but then I kept questioning, why has it not happened yet? Why has it not happened yet? And then you made this beautiful point that actions create momentum, whereas I was seeking momentum from the start. So now I am very cognizant of the actions that may be slow or just one small step, and I know that cumulatively over a period of time that momentum will reach and then the impact will get created. So I think that's one big change in approach that has really impacted. It's a dominoes effect of sorts, right? That action, momentum, reaching impact. So that has drastically changed. And like I said, because my definition of leadership is different, I don't think about deploy yourself anymore, because I know I'm deploying myself and because I'm choosing to lead. And whenever I'm interacting with people, I keep reminding myself that they are leading, right? Like they are choosing to lead. So my job at every given point, be it they are my employee or be it they are my friend or my acquaintance, my job is to, in whatever way, help them lead as well. That's all I have to do. So for me, my interactions have changed with myself and with others that way.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your journey and your experience of coaching and how you have grown. And again, as you said, to summarize, you're not thinking about deploy yourself because it become a part of you. And all of these skills which you have learned and practice has become embodied for you, and it's become natural for you to be that in the moment rather than thinking about that. And I think that's a key element here. So thank you for the journey that we did together, and thank you for this call and sharing everything with anybody who might be listening.
Yeah, and thank you also for having that journey. While I was saying this only, I realized how much we worked together. It was not a single person working. It was not just you working. It was not just me working. I was equally committed from the first session, and you were also committed on my life and leadership from the first session. And I didn't realize until now that how together we worked. It's been fantastic. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Shri.